back to the sports show. We're in the overtime period here. Time to go to Britt because we want a good news story. He gave us the 100-year-old golfer last week, which was a beauty. What's Britt got for the good news story this week?
Well, this week, over the weekend in Toowoomba, in the horse racing, 5 female jockeys took out all 7 races. So
Dominated it.
Absolutely dominated
Nothing
it.
for the men. You gave us nothing.
Well, the men didn't take any, so it's set itself up for a great story. So
I knew it would get
I
to
just
this.
had to, all power to the women, and I just think it doesn't happen often, especially in horse racing. I guess it just shows how the demographics changing within that industry, and it's such a positive story. I had to share it.
Well done. No, that is a great good news story. I like that. What else have you got?
Well, I wanted to ask you about Novak and his unwillingness to announce his vaccination status. We were talking about vaccines last week and how that's starting to show up within the sporting community, especially. What's your take on it? Do you want to let these sporting stars in unvaccinated regardless of who they are?
Absolutely not. I think if you're not letting other people come in, I understand they generate a lot of money, and I know that the Australian Open need that because that funds them for the whole year, and obviously Novak's a massive part of that. So I understand where they're coming from, but I don't think you can say, Novak, you can come in unvaccinated when other people can't come in unvaccinated. If they say you can come in but you've got to quarantine for 14 days and then you're set to go, I think that's what they're saying to everyone. Comfortable with that. But I think you can have different sets of rules around that because he's not in a protective bubble. So, if he plays in the Australian Open, he's playing against other players. So I know he's had COVID. He went out and partied and caught COVID. So maybe Novak thinks he's immune to it, but his chance to win his 10th Australian Open, which would be an amazing record, and he hasn't said whether he's vaccinated or not. So Novak may very well be vaccinated. He just hasn't told anyone about it.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's almost like he's trying to create a bit of a media buzz, using it for publicity versus, almost taking it away from the tennis.
It's a really interesting one, isn't it? Because we saw Ash Barty saying that her summer of tennis was over and she decided she'd had enough of the drain of being away from home, time for her team to come back. So, she's given up a chance to win another tournament, potentially another $3 million. Yet she said, no, I need time to come and freshen up mentally. I want to get away from all that and then surge into the summer. So, it's a tough one. Maybe Novak's starting to say, well, I enjoyed the freedom over there. Last time I came to Australia, it was too restrictive. I don't want to have to deal with that, more the mental side of it than anything else. So maybe for him, it's a good decision not to come.
Do you think there's an element of he's going for his 10th, like he's almost trying to take that pressure off it, focusing on that and almost deterring the media to talk about something else? Do you feel like might
quite
be a
possible.
bit tactical there?
It's not a bad way to go about it. It's a good idea. I hadn't thought about it like that. It's not a bad one, is it? He could potentially be doing it that way. I think in the end, because they live in a bubble, I know that's the word, at that elite level, sometimes you lose perspective on what's happening in the rest of the world.
Absolutely.
And you've been there. You've been at the Olympic Games. You know what it's like once you get into that. You're fully almost oblivious to what's happening outside unless people tell you, but you're so focused on what you're trying to do. So he's focused on winning to become number one in the world. He doesn't really know what's happening in Australia with COVID. He knows what's happening where he is at that moment. So then you rely on your team to let you know what's happening. And the rest of the world, probably not all that concerned about what's happening in Australia right now, what's happened in Melbourne and how they're coming out of lockdown. So he would have to get more information. So it's a good point you make. Maybe he's just focused on that to keep the focus off having to win 10 Aussie Opens. So,
yeah, well, it's an interesting one. We could talk about sport all day, Phil, couldn't we?
We could.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining us once again on the SA Sports Show. That's all we have for today, and we hope that you can join us next week.